I think it's the same password. I have a thing on my phone of all the passwords in the city. Because I can't remember.
To the network, but I can't load anything.
Do you have the right password?
Well, I'm connected. It's not actually.
I'm loading.
All right.
Beg your pardon.
Something's wrong with it.
It's the best way to start a meeting.
Carbo loading.
Carbo loading's fine.
Steinbeck's birthday.
Whose birthday?
Shall we start?
Oh.
Let me get some.
Oh, blood, let's go.
We're waiting for a couple commission members. We'll get started in a couple of minutes, one way or the other.
Take over. Run with the power. Because you're the vice chair, right? Take over. Run with the power. It's okay.
There we are.
Now we're getting somewhere. Hello. How are you?
One-handed.
Well, let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully Fareed will join us. I'd like to call the meeting to order as vice chair and ask Leda to take the roll.
Thanks. Ken McCroskey? Sorry.
Present.
Harry Chomsky?
Present.
Peggy McQuaid?
Present.
Susan Reeves?
Present.
Fareed is absent, but I think he should be coming at any minute.
There he is now.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
The
We
dramatic.
just called roll. You can take right over. We're at approval of minutes.
Any comments on approval of the minutes?
I'll move approval.
I actually have one,
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I'll
Okay.
second. We have that?
which on 6G, it talked about speaking to the police department, and I just wanted to be clear that Commissioner McQuaid and I both spoke to the police department.
Okay,
Just me.
oh, I see.
So with that one, if you want to make your motion.
I also had, looked like one of the motions was, the outcome of the vote wasn't listed.
Which,
I think it was 6D.
six? Oh, that's right. Sorry about that. Thanks, I'll make the changes and.
With the corrections, do we have a motion to approve minutes?
Also move.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the commission on an item that's not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to do so, please come on up to the microphone. You can state your name and tell us what you have to say.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Kardachak. I'm a longtime resident of Albany. I live on Taylor Street. And occasionally my wife and I walk to the Target store and walk back home. The other day, on our way back home walking, I noticed a bike rider who must have been shopping at Target, I assume, leave the parking lot and cross the frontage road there and went down that road that goes underneath the overpass to the bike lane. Well, anyway, on the way down that walk, I noticed the biker come back up, go back on the frontage road, and took the overpass on the wrong side, going towards San Pablo Avenue. So as we were walking, I said, I wonder why he did that. And then it dawned on me that I'm looking at the way it's laid out there, the two paths. As you walk towards there's no way telling you that it leads to the bike path, even though it is a bike path, and that it's the way to get over to the overpass. So that's my main point why we're here tonight. It's not an agenda, but something I pointed out, it may not be whether you people realize that. I don't know how many of you do that route walking and notice that. And the only other thing that's there too is that the fence on both sides of the railroad tracks are cut again, and there's a very worn path across the railroad tracks. People walking that way instead of walking up the overpass. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, any comment on the guide sign timeline?
Yes, we are working with Caltrans, and as a matter of fact, right now, the signs are being manufactured.
Okay.
So there's going to be wayfinding signs for that area of the I-80 off-ramps, and also by the overcrossing. This is part of a project called Integrated Corridor Mobility Project on I-80. So as part of that project, we're going to get wayfinding signage for that area. Regarding the fence, we are going to see, the rail or Public Works can actually erect the fence. We're going to see who's in charge of that. I'm not really sure, but we're going to take care of that. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you. Okay. We have another public comment. On up.
Thank you. My name is Wayne Shipman. I live on Posen Avenue in Albany. I'd like to bring to your attention the state of disrepair of the traffic circle structures at the bottom of Posen Avenue at both Peralta and I believe Ordway. The circle signs at Ordway have been run over, I do not exaggerate here, at least 10 times in the last 3 or 4 years. I suggest that an 8-inch curb be put up instead of the 4-inch curb that's there. I also suggest that someone on this council put together a program to repair the curbing around the triangular space at the bottom of Posen and Peralta, and allow me to organize a neighborhood group to maintain that, because the city does not. It's a blight.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. We can't discuss it tonight, but we'll refer that to staff.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look and hopefully be able to get back to you on that.
Hopefully get back to me, you say?
Well, hopefully have a good answer for you.
Thank you.
We will
Certainly,
get back to you.
we'll get back to you. I'm sorry.
We'll get back to you.
I don't mean to be careless with my words. I apologize. Other speakers? Come on up.
Good evening, Commissioners and citizens of Albany. I am Midori Tabata, and I admit I'm not an Albany resident, but one of Oakland. But I am a frequent visitor. You get part of my sales tax because retail in Oakland is not that great. And I also frequent the Albany Bulb. And I'm here tonight to ask you to review and revise the recently enforced parking prohibition on the Buchanan extension, and perhaps replace it with some kind of restricted time parking. The reason why is that many of us have used the extension to park when the smart parking lot at the park is full. And I don't mind walking a little bit further, and since there are very few parking options in that area. And because of the lack of parking, I have seen other cars circle and wait. And they wait and wait until someone leaves. with their engine running, and that does not do much for greenhouse gas reduction. And the parking situation is particularly difficult for my husband, who's not here tonight, but who has difficulty walking. He chooses to use the bulb for recreation because it's one of the few areas that's fairly level, and and when he's really in pain, he can still use it with his crutches. And the two little handicap parking spaces are often full. So even though he has to walk a little bit further, he doesn't mind parking at the extension because at least it's flat and he can walk in. So that's my request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Amy Smollins?
Hello, Amy Smollins, Canes Avenue. I was planning on trying to address the police and asking them about the vehicle pedestrian collision on January 21st, but they're not here, unfortunately, so I'm gonna, since I'm here, I figured I'd talk to you about it. A driver was found to have violated California Vehicle Code Section 21950, failure to yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk, hit 2 kids and broke one 10-year-old's leg, 2 bones in her leg, and there was no citation issued. I found out about this on Albany Patch, which I know isn't always the greatest bastion of journalism, but is helpful in bringing some of these things to light. A police source in the article said it was a slight impact, which since a kid's leg was broken, that didn't seem true. So a lot of people were discussing this on Patch, and people, including myself, thought that this just wasn't acceptable, that there was no citation issued. I mean, we've all gotten citations, tickets for something. I've gotten one for going straight in a right turn lane once. People have gotten jaywalking tickets. I mean, citations help explain to people that this behavior is not acceptable, that there's a law for a reason, it's not acceptable. And I just don't think it's okay that a driver who's found at fault and breaks someone's leg does not get any citation at all. I think that this says that this behavior is okay, and you can try to squeeze through those pedestrians, you can try to scoot around those cyclists, and I was going to ask the police to explain why there wasn't a citation issued, but they're not here. But so I just want to mention it to you. I think that there's someone else here that wants to talk about it, but I think that as a community, we need to say that this isn't acceptable. That there need to be citations issued in cases such as this. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, come on up.
My name is Joe Matera. I live with my family on Jackson Street. My daughter Artemisia Matera was the child who was hit by the car walking on Solano Avenue, crossing in the crosswalk with the walk signal, crossing Masonic. Car turning left, it hit 2 kids, sent 3 kids sprawling. My daughter's broke her fibia and tibia as a result. I guess when you get hit by a car, it doesn't really matter if the car's going fast. I don't know how fast the car was going. I wasn't there, but it's just shocking. When I read in the Patch that a police source said there was no citation and case was closed. It's just not, I'm hoping that people here, City Council, can put pressure on the police department to actually issue a citation in this case. I mean, I think it's so clear there was a violation of the vehicle code that says, I think, you have to yield to pedestrians. It's so obvious in this case. I just don't get it. It's not enough to say that, she'll get sued. Insurance picks that up. She doesn't even have to think about that. She won't have to pay. She won't have to deal with it at all. She feels bad about it. It just doesn't do it. There needs to be a consequence, and I think that people need to know that if they do something like this, they will be cited, that there's going to be, there's got to be, I actually spoke to the police chief about this a couple weeks ago. I haven't heard anything. I haven't had any result yet from the police department as far as, anyway.
You have a minute to go.
I have a minute to go, okay. Now I lost, it just, there needs to be a citation here, and there needs to be some sort of threshold. When a pedestrian gets hit in a crosswalk and they break a bone, there should be a citation. There needs to be some sort of threshold where, okay, we're going to issue a ticket in that case. But the police apparently, they just don't cite people, period. If they arrive at the scene of the accident and they haven't actually witnessed it themselves, they will not cite. That's their policy. That's what I get from the chief. That's what I get from other officers that I've spoken to. That's just not right. So I hope there's significant pressure from anyone here, city council, whatever, to get a citation issued in this case, and to get a policy of issuing citations in cases like this at the very minimum.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll ask that question of the police staff ourselves and see if we can get an answer. May have to also consult with the city attorney.
Right.
But it'd be useful for us to hear, what they can tell us about the policy and what perhaps could be changed.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment on items not on tonight's agenda? Okay. We'll move on to our next item, which is the police report, but I don't see a representative here tonight.
There's not going to be police report. Chief McQuiston called me this morning, and he said that there was no one who could actually be present because they have other assignments. There will be a police report next month.
Okay. All right. Which takes us to item 6A, which is the Buchanan, Marin, and Bikeway Phase 3 Utility Undergrounding Project.
Yes, thanks. As a way of introduction to, we're having two projects tonight under this item is the utility undergrounding under Rule 28 and the Marin Avenue Bikeway Phase 3, which is the extension of the bike lanes from San Pablo Avenue to Cornell Avenue. In June 2010, the City Council adopted resolution number 2010-32 for the creation of the Buchanan Marin Utility Overhead Conversion District along the south side of Buchanan Street between Cleveland and San Pablo Avenue, and both sides of Marin Avenue between San Pablo and Masonic. We have basically Rule 28 is a program established by the California Public Utilities Commission that enables PG&E to recover costs from rates paid by its electric ratepayers for a particular undergrounding project. With the credits that we had accumulated, we could actually cover the area from San Pablo Avenue to Masonic, either one, or from Cleveland to San Pablo. However, since we had the Marin Avenue Bikeway, we already had a grant secured for the design and construction of the bicycle lane extensions. City actually decided to build this project at the same time and achieve economies of scale in staff time and also some construction effort. Right now we have staff from PG&E. Donna Pontrello, she's the staff liaison for the undergrounding project, and the project managers here to actually clarify any questions and details. Right now, we mailed the residents of the within the underground district the permission to enter forms, and we have someone for this community meeting to provide some more information and schedule details. and the next steps basically for the undergrounding district. We also have Robert Stevens from BKF and Associates, who is the the design engineer for the Marin Avenue Bikeway Phase 3, and he will be also presenting the different phases of the project. We for this project, if you remember, in June 2013, we had the initial conceptual plan, and we received comments at that meeting regarding the width of the lanes, bulb outs, consolidated driveway at the Arco gas station, and basically providing some buffer between the travel lanes and the bicycle lanes. The current design is including basically most of those comments. This is basically still conceptual design, and we basically will develop more detailed plans as the year goes by. These projects, the undergrounding and the Marin Buchanan Bikeway Phase 3, are slated to be built between 2015 and 16. One, regarding the financial impact on these projects, one thing I would like to mention right now to the Commission is that as the Marin Avenue Bikeway is basically the Buchanan Marin Avenue Bikeway, as it is right now, the cost is about $2 million. And we have secured some grants, but even with that, we are short about $500,000. So right now, we are trying to get additional grants. There's an opportunity upcoming in March through the Active Transportation Program through Caltrans. So we are thinking of applying for this project and maybe another project that has to do with the complete streets. So with that, I would like to see, basically, if you have questions, I would like to see if Donna and PG&E staff could add more information about the undergrounding project. And after that, I would like to present the Marin Avenue, the Buchanan Marin Bikeway, and Robert Stevens will make the presentation.
Any questions?
So, do you have any additional information? Okay.
Any questions from Commission? None? Okay, I think we've followed it fairly closely, so nothing at this point.
So thank you. My name is Robert Stevens, and I'm with BKF Engineers here in Richmond. Thank you for having me here tonight. As Alita mentioned, we've advanced the design based on the comments that we received last summer in coordination with PG&E. As PG&E has been advancing their design, we've had the opportunity to kind of move this project forward. So as we discussed before, the project commences at the Class 1 trail just east of San Pablo Avenue and ends at the existing Class 2 bicycle lanes at Cornell on Marin Avenue. And as I think we mentioned before, we're really fortunate here. We have a lot of right-of-way that we're able to actually improve pedestrian and bicycle facilities within the city's right-of-way without a lot of major modifications. So again, a couple of the key concepts here is we'll be adding Class 2 bicycle lanes from San Pablo Avenue connecting to the existing facilities at Cornell. In order to accommodate some of the modifications to adding the bicycle lanes and improving the pedestrian facilities, the poles on the south side, the utility poles on the south side of the road will be undergrounded. Another addition in this project from last time is we're adding the Class 2 bicycle lane to the west of San Pablo Avenue there. And we'll be doing some modifications at the traffic signal. So as I mentioned, right now the facility west of the intersection has a sharrow. The concept would be to relocate the curb line and adjust the southwest curb ramps and pedestrian ramps at that location to provide the Class 2 facility to the left of the right turn lane. At this location here, currently, staff's working on developing a signal improvement that's going to include a no right turn on red. And as this project moves forward, the Marin Avenue bicycle lanes, it's going to actually add a designated signal bicycle phase for the eastbound movement. There was some discussion about adding a refuge crossing Keynes Avenue, at Keynes Avenue, crossing Marin Avenue. As you can see here, this is a simulation showing car movements turning outbound. As you can see, it's fairly constrained at that location. If the left turn movement is going to be preserved, the bicycle refuge is a little shorter than probably what is optimal. This would be, I think, further studied as we move forward with the design. Again, you'll notice there is a door swing buffer proposed in the bicycle lane. I think that was a comment that was received. Again, in this location, the travel lanes are, where possible, 10.5 feet adjacent to the bicycle lane. Similar at the Stanage to Cornell Avenue. The key adjustment here is at this location. Right here where the bicycle lane merges at Cornell, we've added an additional buffer space between the travel lane and the bicycle lane. And I think that highlights some of the changes that were made in the concept plan.
Okay, any questions from commission members? I do have one.
No, go ahead.
I have one question, which maybe was addressed before, and it just is popping into my mind again, which is looking at the proposed striping between Keynes and Cornell. The center lane is a pair of back-to-back left turn lanes in this. I'm just curious why to use that instead of a two-way left turn lane like we have on the rest of Marin.
My question too.
I think we'd get the same functionality and, in fact, slightly more for people being able to access their driveways.
I think that's a good point.
Okay. Other question?
And my, I guess, question is more to Albany staff. I like the adding the planter boxes or the green or however that's going to play out. But again, we have stuff that we can't maintain because we don't have enough staff. Is there anything built into, as we add greenery, that we add staff hours? But I think that's important to consider as we move these things forward.
Had just questions about some elements that we've discussed outside of commission meetings. One was at the place where the bike lane has to curve to where the automobiles are merging, getting into the transition back to the existing bike lane. We had talked about maybe putting some kind of a vertical barrier between the bike lane and the automobiles there. Is that something that should be brought up at this stage of the planning, or is that a kind of detail that can be added later?
Yeah, we talk about that, but if you want to clarify a little bit, I mean,
we've heard the comment, and I think one of the considerations we were wondering about is, does the vertical, like a berm or a curb in that location, does it potentially create a hazard for a cyclist if they don't see it?
I was thinking of something more like rubber posts or just something flexible but visible.
Marker bollards or
yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
And we had a number of suggestions from Albany strollers and rollers that go into varying levels of detail. And
right. The email that is in your, I copied here, but I also sent you the email from Preston Jordan on behalf of the strollers and rollers, and I sent you the email as well. We can incorporate that, the reduction of the pans, as
the gutter pan.
The gutter pan.
Yeah, it sounded like that was a very
It's a level
good
of
outcome.
detail right now that we don't have. It has to be more when we develop the actual construction plans. with regard to the consolidation of the driveway, this is just an initial thought. The exact location of the driveway for the gas station, we don't know it yet. We are talking to the property owners, the business owners as well, and we still have to run some turning radii envelopes there so we can actually see where the location could be placed there. So one thing is that they basically want to have respect for their business too, but they understand the safety concerns that we have, the city has. So we also mentioned the barrier between the sidewalk and the property, and the private property, and while they are open to discussions, they haven't agreed to anything yet. So it's an ongoing process.
Okay. I just want to make sure that all the points either get addressed or clarified, that it's too early to be going into that much detail. So one thing that Preston's letter mentioned was an issue about the width of the north sidewalk along the Shell station near the car wash. Is that something that we can go into now,
Right.
or is that also?
Well, in the current configuration, the north sidewalk is as wide as it can be within the city's right-of-way,
Okay.
while maintaining the travel lanes at the widths that are shown in the bicycle lane and that configuration.
Okay, so whatever, it was hard for me to follow exactly what was being suggested in the email, but should we conclude that that just can't be done, or whatever the suggestion was?
Well, if 5 feet is desirable, then we have to really sacrifice the width of the. We only have so
Yeah.
much right of way. So
I understand. It's just that Preston stated that there is additional right-of-way north of the north sidewalk, west of Canes, that could be used to widen this sidewalk to 5 feet. Now, I haven't looked at the diagram, so I don't know exactly what he's suggesting, but do you think he was mistaken?
we have to look at the
So-
right of way plans. I mean,
Yeah, I hear the comment, and I think we can address that concern.
Okay. And then, as far as the gutter pan questions, I'm glad that that can be addressed in the future. It seems that the solution to it is partly narrowing the gutter pan, but partly also pulling the curb back a bit. So is the location of the curb something that's also?
that should not encroach into the right of way for the bicyclists. That's basically. And it was done, as he mentioned, the intersection of Buchanan and Jackson and
Yeah.
Marin and Santa Fe. So it is also, we review it with Anna, so it's basically our standards between 1.5 feet and 2 feet. Is that right, Anna?
Yeah.
It's within our standard 18 inches or 24 inches.
Yeah.
So it's,
So we can push the curve as well.
Okay, and you can move the curb
Yeah.
also later in the process.
Yeah. we
Okay.
can move the curve.
Okay, I think that, yeah, that covers it. Thanks.
I have one more question about, you mentioned setting it to be no right turn on red. Is that
That's going to be at San Pablo and Marin.
facing which direction?
Facing, it's the eastbound direction. It's the eastbound direction.
Okay, I'm going to need somebody to walk me through this. It seems to me that the bicycle is on the left side of the right-hand turning cars. What difference does it make? But on going westbound, the bicycles are either in front or on the right side where the car would be turning.
Yeah,
Well, basically, it's I'm sorry,
Help me out, Harry.
there is also the bike trail
Path.
that is there on the right-hand side of the right turning vehicles.
So eastbound for the less aggressive cyclists, kids maybe, who are
Okay.
riding from Ocean View School, not in the street, but on the path, for them to cross, they have to cross the path of the right turning traffic.
Okay,
So that's the main reason for the right turn on red prohibition.
but then why wouldn't you put it going westbound also?
You could, but at least there, the cyclists are immediately adjacent to the cars and have an opportunity to get into the bike box in front of the cars. So it's less of an issue there. You don't have a dedicated right turn lane. I mean, you could do it,
Yeah.
but there's
I mean, you
a
have
lot
an
less
arrow,
need
So
there.
it seems like an arrow and a bicycle sort of sitting there seems dangerous to me, but.
The special problem eastbound is that bicyclists who are on the path are making a transition from path riding to street riding.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we just wanted to.
And
really
from
make
another
sure to
direction,
protect
there
them.
are already on the street.
Right.
I mean, we can explore it with Caltrans. If they allow us one direction, they might allow the other one, but it depends if I get additional money too.
That's fine.
Okay. Other questions, comments? I will just throw out sort of a side note here for staff about the gas station sidewalk and people parking or driving on it. Maybe an interim solution would be put up a sign specifically prohibiting that.
Right, and we also talked to the owner about that, and we pointed out that it's illegal, but we can actually work on some signage.
And the sign would go in public right of way, so
Yeah.
I think we could probably do that, put it in the landscaping facing towards the gas station. At least that way, if anyone's ever observed doing that, it allows easier enforcement to be able to say, there's fair notice here. Although it should be pretty obvious already not to drive on the sidewalk. Okay, we'll open this up for public comments, and if there are any questions, we'll gather those up and answer them at the end rather than try to have a back and forth while anyone's making their comments. So if anyone would like to speak to this, come on up.
Good evening. I'm representing a household at 1146 Marin Avenue. That particular block seems to be losing most of its parking. It has currently about 5 to 6, depending on the size of the car, and it's getting 1 now. So I am asking if there's any way we could possibly get another parking place, mainly because of, people that come to work on your house, plumbers and stuff like that. It would be kind of nice to have that. I do see one, well, it's not up there now, but. This spot right here could be maybe notched a little bit so we get one more car in. We tend to get a lot of people that leave their cars there for 3 days at a time trying to sell them, so I'm just trying to make it a little easier on all the people on that block. And you did mention my other concern, which was the lane down the middle being left, right turn on both lanes. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Amy Smolens, I live on Canes Avenue, so I use this area quite a bit. So I just want to commend BKF for a lot of for addressing the bike lane left of the right turn lane, westbound, the bike signal phase, the door zone buffer, and the no right turn. I think that'll really help people from the path trying to cross San Pablo. So I just think that these are all really important safety upgrades. So thanks.
Thank you.
John McGee, I live on Curtis Street. It's a little strange being on this side of the wall. So a couple comments. I think when I was on the commission, I had asked some questions about whether or not it was possible to get bulb outs on the side streets off of Marin, so Canes, Stanage, and Cornell. If we're rebuilding these corners anyways, can we take a foot or two out of those widths? As the commission has heard in the past, on other streets, there are issues with cars coming off of Marin at high speeds. Maybe if we can narrow those down a little bit, that'll help keep that to a minimum. Point 2 was Marin between Stanage and Cornell. The plan is, the plan is a little bit odd in that this is the one section where we're actually losing planter strip, and so the cars are parked up against a minimum sidewalk. And so I don't know there whether or not it makes sense to maybe to consider switching the parking from this location to the location that one of the previous speakers mentioned over here, where there's more room to maybe work in parking that would both have buffer between the sidewalk and there's just generally seems to be more space there. A question about the planter along Marin between San Pablo and Canes. If it's not possible to get an easement from private property owners in order to make the sidewalk 5 feet, could we instead consider making that portion of Marin Avenue more of a situation where you don't have the green planter strip and any trees that happen to be there are placed in in tree wells, so that effectively everywhere you would have, I think maybe 8 feet of sidewalk, except where the tree wells happen to be, where depending on the tree well design, you might have some areas that you would have a little bit more than the 4 feet to be able to use. So just a consideration there that might make it easier than trying to get an easement over private property. Another question is, and there appears to be a driveway missing from this building here. This is a duplex, which I only know that it should have driveways because at one point there was an open house and I walked through it. But I believe there are driveways here too for this building right next to the Arco. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Okay, seeing no additional speakers, I'll bring it back to the commission for any discussion. Further comments?
I'd like to say I'm excited about this project and the work that's been done. It's looking good. I noticed that there are bulb outs shown on Canes, at least on the northern part of it, on the side street. I'm just curious why that's shown on one and not the others.
So as we mentioned, cost has been a challenge. So we're trying to maintain as much of the general drainage patterns as possible, and that's what's depicted here. At Canes, there is that one large tree with a large root ball, and the bulb out is designed to sort of work with that tree to accommodate a pedestrian ramp.
Right.
Also, if I want to add, I think we discussed that in the other reason was to direct the bicycle travel to the median for the refuge. So median on Marin Avenue. I think that's just to align the travel, bicycle travel there too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a significant cost issue to add side street bulb outs on the other streets?
Yes, we're trying to. I mean, if we don't get additional funds, we'll have to eliminate some bulb outs. The near side might be a good idea to eliminate. I have a comment regarding the bulb out and the parking for the Cornell in Marin. The reason we have bulb outs there is because that's as a route to school. So we can discuss some options. For instance, just doing bulb out on one side, but then just adding it on the south east of Stanage. In that way, we will decrease the distance, but not as much as it is shown there. That's something that we can discuss later.
Okay. Thanks.
I have another question about the refuge in the middle of the intersection at Canes. We had been interested in doing car counts to see how much those left turn motions were actually being used and how much of a problem it would be to cut them off. Is there any?
Yeah, I will do it. I was going to do it yesterday, but it was raining and also we would like to, one thing that we have to be careful with that is that we the original design when we did the environmental work did not include that restriction. And if we are going to do it and actually affect a lot of traffic, we will trigger environmental review. And that will add cost to the project. And
So if you do the car count and find out that it's not that significant, then would you be able to add that
if it's
restriction
not
without
significant,
triggering
we might be able to do some kind of, we can do it in-house if it's not significant. But if it is significant, we will have to really hire a consultant to do it. And
Okay, so we just need to get the results of the count before we
Yes.
can proceed
Yeah.
with that discussion. And so are you planning to do that count
we'll do it
soon?
soon.
Okay. And there was some question about needing additional volunteers to help with that, is that?
I think we have a volunteer from
From strollers and
from
rollers?
Strollers and Rollers.
Okay, you don't need any more?
And we do have an intern, and it's a matter of actually creating a schedule and define a date.
Okay.
You work with them to actually coordinate. That's basically.
Okay. The not counting in the rain is because rain causes weird traffic numbers, not because we're afraid of the rain.
No, that's right. That's right.
That would be okay, too.
We're going to
Pretty
melt.
obvious to me, but just wanted to
We're
share.
going to melt.
It's only in a year like this that we would say anything having to do with rain is weird, right?
Well, yeah. But yeah,
Also, in the staff report, we mentioned that we need to run, the other thing we're going to do at our intersection for the analysis is to run different turning radii for the different, right now you only use the regular sedan, is that right?
Yes, what's depicted in the exhibit on the packet is a vehicle, standard passenger car.
Yeah, this is not a bus route or a truck route. However, from time to time, we get some encroachment permit for moving vans or moving trucks, and we have to make sure that they can, or they cannot, because they're not very often, actually, so.
Okay. And they may have other routes that they can take if that turn doesn't work. for
Yeah,
them.
as long as we have a mitigation.
Right. Okay.
So what would the bicycle move be coming south from Canes? You potentially cross halfway? So onto that surface. So it's got,
Yeah, it's a median, it's an actual space, a refuge between curbs.
so it has, certain part of it is ramps and certain part of it is not.
It's probably flush with a curb around it, so allow the bicyclist to come into it. It has an opening.
Okay.
Maybe it's elevated slightly.
So the bicycles would be traveling then near the crosswalk or near the turning cars? Okay. So in fact, the bulb out looks to me like it's not helping the bicycles particularly. If anything, it's putting them farther away from where they need to be to get to their refuge.
The bulb out on the west side,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because I thought I heard you say that one of the reasons you had to put the bulb outs in that location in particular was because of the bicycles and the refuge, but right now it looks like the confluence between the bulb out and the refuge is not especially great.
I think there's some other discussions related to some other projects that may have driven some of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, the goal is to do this project in such a way as to facilitate the possibility of a future bike boulevard on Canes and possibly even northbound bike boulevard on Canes with whatever treatment is needed. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do with the refuge and the bulb outs is as open to that future possibility as possible.
We will be working, as I mentioned to you at the last meeting, I've heard informally that we were going to get some assistance from the Alameda County Transportation, it's Alameda County Technical Assistance Program, which is run by the Alameda County Transportation Commission, to actually study the bicycle facilities on Keynes and Adams, and also the parking assessment for the city. I haven't received so far anything formal or letter or anything that actually formalized that comment, but I think I'm very positive we're going to get it. So what it is basically having a consultant hired by Alameda County to do the studies. And the timeline coincides with this design, so we can actually coordinate with them too. So whatever we don't know what the bicycle facility will be yet. So that's the main problem.
So you think that the study for the possible bike boulevard will be making progress soon enough that its outcome can influence the design for this, which is already quite far along?
I think it can go together. As I said, they have a timeline of March would be the formal announcement. So I'm waiting to hear from them, and then we have to work on a scope of work with them, with Alameda County, select the consultant. They already have a pool of consultants, and then we're going to do that. It's a matter of deciding. I don't think there are a lot of options for a bicycle facility. There are a couple that I'm thinking, but it's a matter of deciding which one and create the public process for that. So pretty much we will know what will be by the time we develop the construction plans, I think.
Okay, good.
So just a thought on the same northwest corner, the top left bulb out in that picture. It looks like right now there's drain inlets on both sides of that corner, which may be why the return on the Marin side is rather abrupt to avoid having to relocate that inlet. But it's kind of hard to scale from this photo. It looks like the inlet on Keynes would have to be modified. If we didn't do the bulb out, we could avoid that. The downside, of course, would probably be we start squeezing the ramps, and I don't know if there'd be enough space left to have two ramps, and well, we'd really need to have two ramps in that location when you're that close to the traffic lane and the bike lanes. So
Yeah,
I think it looks really squeezed. I don't know there's a clear opportunity there or not, but if there's a cost savings potential for not having the bulb out on the Keynes side there, to give the bikes a better alignment, that seems probably reasonable to look into.
Okay.
And I get that there's only one lane coming out there, so it's pretty easy to squeeze it down. It has no other
Yeah.
negative consequence, but for the bikes, it's kind of putting them in a bad alignment. It might be nicer to keep them a little closer over there to the side. Other comments? Okay. You didn't need any action from us on this tonight? Just
No, it's just information
Okay,
and
perfect.
comments, basically.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
So members from the public regarding questions about the undergrounding?
Yeah. And I actually wanted to follow up another one of the public comments about doing more bulb outs between driveways that don't have enough space for parking.
Oh, that's right.
And while the bulb outs for trees on Buchanan by the park are great, I wouldn't put a bulb out with a tree in particular between driveways because it creates a visibility problem for cars coming out of the driveway. So I don't like putting trees right at conflict points. So I would tend to not follow up on that recommendation, entirely aside from the cost.
Right. And I think we discussed that last year too, when the 35% plans showed the bulb outs, the 3 bulb outs. And I don't remember exactly the reason, but I think it's visibility one, and also they add cost to the project.
And drainage.
And drainage, yeah.
The ones we've got have some interesting characteristics to provide for drainage, and that's fine, but costly. Okay. So did you have any more information on the undergrounding, or?
No, basically, staff from PG&E is here to answer questions. I don't know if the public has some questions about the undergrounding project. If you want to,
If you'd like to come on up and ask a question. Looks like you're on your own.
I have a series of questions. My name is Wayne Shipman. I own 1002 Talbot. First question is, where are the rest of the sheets of the drawing for this project? You've shown sheet 2 of 3. What does 1 of 3 and 3 of 3 contain?
oh, I can answer right now. The other sheets are basically the area from Cleveland to San Pablo. And that's not going to be underground right now, so this is the area that is going to be underground.
Is this sheet final?
Yes, pretty much it is.
Second question, will all the poles in the project service area be removed?
The poles?
Yes.
Yeah, they will be replaced, is my understanding.
Replaced with what?
Well, right now, we have steel pole, we don't have steel poles.
Yes, the utility poles. There are probably 30 shown on this drawing. What is going to happen to them? I'm sorry, your last comment?
They'll be removed because they're in the underground district.
Oh, thank you. Who's going to be responsible and accountable for continuity of services for phone and cable on this project? Who's going to coordinate that?
The city is coordinating that effort. We are meeting with them since 2010, and right now, it's an ongoing meeting effort.
Thank you. On the work at the particular houses, one of which is mine, who is going to handle the removal of the existing service entrances when the new service entrance is provided from the underground path?
PG&E will be doing the panel conversions, and the other utility companies will actually do it in coordination after.
Who will remove my current service entrance?
I'm sorry, the question is?
Who is going to remove my current service entrance? The power pole that I have on the side of my house that goes up 25 feet and receives the service.
Right.
Who will remove that?
We will do it with this project, when this project is under construction.
Okay, it's part of this project?
Yes.
In every case?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
You're wrong. It is. So it's my cost, my responsibility to remove my current pipe and my weather service entrance. Thank you. You answered. It's my responsibility, correct? It's everyone's responsibility to remove their own. Will you be marking the pathways across our lawns and drives, fences, driveways, where we will hopefully expect you to put all that back together after you're done? Mm-hmm. And if you cross my driveway or my walkway to my front yard or my front door or go through or under a fence of mine or a decorative wall, it's my responsibility to remove that and put it back in place, or is it yours? Yours. In kind. How long will a homeowner be out of service for either electrical service, phone, or cable, on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, so I can speak for electrical. The electrical service, the circuit will be shut off typically for a day. Typical is an 8-hour day, and multiple houses will be converted in that one day. So telephone and cable, I couldn't speak to that exactly. Should be a shorter duration than that, but power, you have to shut the power down, the overhead and the underground, in order to switch the box.
Of course.
Yeah, typically 8 hours.
There are power poles shown outside of the project boundary map. I'm interested in why the power pole in front of 1014 Talbot is not shown, which is probably very close to where you're going to start or finish, depending on your perspective, the undergrounding project south of Marin on Talbot. The survey has missed that pole.
That's a city boundary map. The city doesn't have to show any poles at all on the boundary map, just where the boundary shows that any property or pole within that district will be removed. They did show the poles. I'm not sure why that pole on Talbot wasn't shown outside the district.
Well, it's interesting to me because it's right in front of my house and my neighbor Kaylan's, and we're both wondering where the wires are going to go down and come back up. Can you answer that?
I can't answer exactly because it depends on where the riser poles will be located. So it depends on if the pole in front of your house has a transformer on it already, it will not rise up there. But I don't have the design yet. The project hasn't been designed yet. So I can't answer exactly what's going to happen on Talbot Avenue.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but this has gone substantially beyond the normal 3-minute public comment period. If you'd like to set up a meeting to bring specific plans and go through details, I'm sure we could arrange that. But I'd like to get on with the business of the commission.
Thank you for the extra time. I don't think I wasted the commission's time.
No, not at all. Thank you. Okay. If we have nothing else, then move on to our next item, please.
Okay.
Oh, please. I didn't realize there was anything else.
Remember to put the timer.
Sure. Okay.
The question I have is, what's the cost of an electrical upgrade? If you have one that's less and you want one that's more, what's the cost of that?
I'd also like to go back to just taking all the questions and then we'll answer them at the end because the back and forth is chewing up your time.
Okay. No, will I get another chance to ask questions if they're not answered in the course of this meeting, or should I ask them now to?
Go ahead and ask all the questions you've got. If you have a follow-up conditional question, sure.
Okay, yeah.
But we'd like to get everybody's questions, and then we can answer them all at once. I think we'll be more efficient that way, and it's the usual way of business.
Okay, I'm just saying I can wait, or I can, to see if it's answered, or I can ask now.
I'll give you another
Whichever's more
chance if you
efficient.
feel like you've been ignored.
No, I don't feel I've been ignored. I'm just curious about
Okay.
these questions. So I was just wondering what the cost of the upgrade is. Does anybody know that? If we choose to get an upgrade, it's part of a permission slip. We
Okay,
can get
well-
an upgrade at our cost, but it's a substantially.
So we'll get to that at the end of all
Okay, that's
the
gonna be
public
answered.
comments.
Okay, that's one
Yes.
And then what's the difference between a termination can and a meter panel? And is the meter panel the same as the fuse box or a breaker box, or is that something that's separate that takes the electricity and then goes into the existing fuse box or breaker box?
Okay.
That's a question. And then if we do need upgrades, how much time do we have to get those done? How much warning will we have to do that? And then who will tell us? And
Okay.
those are my main questions.
All right. Great. Thank you. Any other public comments, questions? None? Okay, if PG&E could come on up and take a shot at answering those, if you have any. The first one was regarding the cost of upgrades.
So everyone has a choice on the, sorry? Oh, sorry. I don't do this very often.
Sorry.
My name's Donna Pontrello. I'm from PG&E. And this is Phil Bayardo. He's with West Valley Construction. This is the company that will be doing the conversions and the upgrades. So everyone has the choice of additional work besides the general conversion. The one-for-one conversion is included. The city is using its credits to cover the cost of that. If anyone wants an upgrade, then it's on an individual case-by-case basis. You would contact me or the project manager, Alex Hom, and we would direct you to Phil, and Phil would help with that process. So it varies a lot depending on what the upgrade is and whatever's involved. And the reason why the upgrade's on the form is because the property owner will receive a discount for the upgrade. So let's say the upgrade was $4,000 and the regular conversion was $2,000. The property owner would only have to pay the difference.
Okay, so the baseline conversion is not necessarily always the same cost, so you can't just provide a default answer. You'd have to look at each location.
Right, especially for an upgrade. The upgrade is where it's more variable.
Okay. But people can get that information by getting in touch with you and Phil?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the termination can versus the meter panel fuse box issue?
Hi. Yeah, so the side of the house typically has, well, right now it's got an overhead feed connecting to a weatherhead. Wires run down the weatherhead into the meter box. So you can call it the meter panel, the meter box, the meter. It's usually a steel box that has a meter coming out of it. Some of the older styles vary drastically depending on what decade they were put in. The termination can is more than likely the new junction box that will be installed as a termination point for the underground conduit that runs to the house, comes up out of the ground. Conduit would connect to the bottom of that termination can, and then there'd be another conduit that runs from the termination can to the meter panel or the meter box, whatever you want to call it. So on the day of the electrical switchover, the termination can wiring is connected to the meter wiring, and then the overhead wiring is disconnected.
Okay, great. And the amount of time that would be allowed for upgrades, how much notice would people get before they need to take care of that?
Really, we'd like to know as soon as possible because the project is going to be designed and we want to allow for any additional power that's needed. So as soon as you can would be the best.
Okay, but if someone waits 6 months, will they miss their opportunity?
We plan to start conversions in September, so it would really be beneficial to decide within the next few months.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions, comments from the commission?
Actually, this may be for city staff. What happens to the street lighting in this project?
The street lighting?
We are going to provide for new poles, and then there will be most likely steel poles with a new luminary, or just relocating the luminaries that are on PG&E poles into the new poles.
But basically, it's just
Great.
the wires that will go under the underground.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't get rid of all the poles. We're going to have to put back some poles for the lighting.
So do the steel poles take up such a small amount of space that they don't need to be factored into our decisions about landscape width and sidewalk width and all of that?
We're probably going to locate it within the existing lightings. So we don't have to add new lightings, and we have pretty much the same coverage. But we can look at, when we are in the final design, locating them, And we see, you know, any conflict that we have of landscaping or any other things that we can move a little bit here and there and then still have a good coverage.
Okay, but we don't need to like have a dedicated piece of width along the entire length of the project just for those poles.
I don't think so.
We've accommodated for that in the design.
Oh, you have, okay, good.
Great. Just doesn't show up in this conceptual design, I guess. Great.
Well, this is just the map that when we created the district, as we speak, we're developing the maps right now. The city, just as a reminder, we entered into a contract with a company called RGA and Associates, and they are basically, they've done a lot of trenching drawings for undergrounding projects, so that's their specialty. They're in charge of doing that. The plans will be sent to PG&E. PG&E will develop the electrical plans. Together with our pavement project, we will go to bid in 2015, in the summer of 2015. I think that's scheduled for implementation between 15 and 16.
Okay, thank you. All right. So assuming there are no further questions or comments on that, we can move on to our next item.
Thanks.
So this will be the Safe Routes Marin and Curtis concept plans.
Yeah.
Well, so Marin, Curtis Safe Routes to School was the grant from Caltrans to implement pedestrian enhancements at Marin and Curtis. TJKM is going to be giving the design concepts for the curb alignment on the east side of Marin Elementary School.
Right.
Leda, can you confirm that this isn't too close to my house?
Oh, that's right. What is your
I'm near
address?
Curtis and Francis. I'm south of Francis. So the distance between Francis and Sonoma, is that enough to?
I think I think you should recluse yourself. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Francis, you said?
Yeah.
I'm south of Francis. So it's a pretty long block.
Yeah, if you're south of Francis, I think you're probably clear.
Are you measuring or eyeballing?
I'm eyeballing on the assumption that a lot of our blocks are about 800 feet long.
Yeah.
This is much longer than a typical block.
Oh, then it might be fine.
Yeah, it's south of the project limits, so
Yeah.
I don't know what your
Well, the project
500
limits
500
go to
500
Sonoma.
feet away from
So the
the
distance from Francis to Sonoma, I'm sorry, did I say Pomona? Oh, yeah. That looks like about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
I think you're about twice as
fine.
far as you need to be.
Okay,
You're good.
Thanks.
So, well, the city obtained a state legislated Safe Routes to School grant from Caltrans for the design and construction of pedestrian enhancement, safety improvements at the intersection of Curtis and Marin, and also at the intersection of Curtis and Sonoma. This grant actually was derived by the Santa Fe Jackson enhancements, and what this grant includes is a bulb out at this intersection of Curtis and I'm sorry, I'm spacing out. Curtis and Marin Avenue, and the implementation of the rapid flashing pedestrian beacon for the crosswalk on the side of Marin Elementary School. High visibility crosswalks, the sidewalk along the east side of Marin Avenue, and also implementation of high visibility crosswalks at Sonoma and Curtis, and bulb outs at the same time. Right now we started the design. We hired DJKM Transportation Consultants, and Consulting is Siegfried Engineering to design the project. So we started the project, entering into a contract in November 2013, and started the project in December 2013. At this meeting, we would like to receive input from the community and the commission regarding the conceptual plans that are presented tonight. And I have Mr. Atul Patel, who's with TJKM, and Paul Schneider from Siegfried Engineering. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, sorry. So in general, what we have here is, actually, I should have put this other slide when I was talking about the components of the project. This is what the components of the project, this is what went with the grant application. And as I said, we have the high visibility crosswalks at the south, at the intersection of Curtis and Sonoma. The rapid flashing pedestrian beacon that is portrayed there will be at the crosswalk along Marin Avenue, from Marin with Curtis. And we're building also a sidewalk along the east side of Marin Elementary School, and high visibility crosswalks and bulb outs at Sonoma and Curtis. One of the houses, 1492, I think it is affected by the project. And we met with the property owner to provide some options for the driveway alignment. And the alignment that is shown on the plans is what he preferred. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Patel to actually explain the plans. And I do have the plans here.
Great. So the first sheet shows the vicinity map of where the project's located, and the project site is shown. You want to go to the next slide?
So this, the second is basically this is the demolition. And for some reason, I want to maybe it's reduction of 75.
Yeah, I think if you zoom out, it'll.
Okay, there you go.
Yep. So this is the demolition plan, and the shaded areas at the corners show where the proposed demolition of the existing curb and roadway is proposed for the new bulb outs. You see on the plan here where the existing crosswalks are located and where the existing sidewalk and ramps are. Currently, all the corners have non-ADA compliant ramps, so this project is building new ramps at each corner.
And this is the intersection of Buchanan, the intersection of Marin and Curtis.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to explain the realignment of the property that's been affected.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Paul Schneider to.
I'm going to see if I can dim the lights because we cannot see it very well.
This particular intersection really warranted quite a lot of study. One of the things you'll see on the corner is the driveway in the existing condition currently comes out sort of right at what you would call an access ramp. It's not really any kind of a compliant ramp. And we studied 3 different alternatives. One, to try and move the driveway onto the side street, and one to move it further down Marin. There's a couple of very mature trees. They're represented by the big green dots, and trying to avoid those trees, trying to keep any kind of a semblance of a driveway that would line up with the garage, trying to maintain access to the front yard. We had our whole landscape architecture group at it, looking at it, and it just, it was very, very challenging. So one of the options was to leave the driveway in between the two accessible ramps that we were going to have. The three options were presented to, Alita presented them to the homeowner and got some feedback. And what you see in front of you now is a little bit of a modification to that plan. The couple of modifications were to move
Paul, you will have to be either get that
I'll
microphone.
stay here, that's fine.
Otherwise-
I can use Vanna White here to point
Okay.
for me. No, either way, the idea was also to make sure that there are curved edges to the driveway to make sure that the flush transition onto the road, that movements can be moved in and out of that driveway more easily. Do we have the one with the traffic movements?
There is a movement.
Okay. Both of these turning movements were run with an auto turn simulation, which is just a standard passenger car or a full-size pickup truck. There were some concerns in the meeting with the homeowner, and I don't know if that homeowner's here tonight, but the idea was to make sure that they could turn into that driveway in multiple scenarios, these two being more or less the hardest scenarios. So if you're heading westbound, correct? If you're heading westbound, can you make this pseudo U-turn into the driveway? And that was proven okay. These envelopes that we show are actually very conservative, so I'm not too concerned about someone getting into the driveway. And then obviously eastbound was the other turning movement we were looking at, and that's not a problem either. So I'm not sure exactly what else to describe about it. We're at a preliminary stage, so there are a couple of things that we've talked about but that you don't see in the plan, that given the fact that the driveway falls between these two accessible ramps, and this might be an area of refuge or a sort of a stacking area for kids on bikes or kids on, pedestrians of any kind, the idea would be that the driveway may receive some sort of a different paving pattern. There might be some form of a warning sign. There might just something that's not going to be atrociously yellow, that's going to look horrid. But I feel like we should have something that kind of indicates this may not be the best place to stand, and we've provided ample refuge on either side of this. So this whole plan needs to be fine-tuned, but from what I understand, we've been able to come to a consensus on where the driveway should be. And realistically, it's probably the safest for all scenarios. It's not ideal, but it is better than the other two scenarios that were very restrictive and sight lines were going to be a problem. Other than that, would you like me to go through the other corners, Alita?
Can I ask a quick question while we're on the, can we go back to the
the
proposed driveway? One back.
The close-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just, in looking at the plans, there's a small star on the plan right below the crosswalk cutout. Just with a circle around it? A circle around it, yeah.
It's a sanitary sewer clean out.
Okay, so it's flush.
It's just a flush little
Great,
box. Yeah,
thank you.
Little oval box. It's bigger than it really is on the plan. So the rest of the concept at this intersection, and admittedly, we did get the same emails from rollers and strollers, if I'm saying that correctly, with respect to the width of the gutter pan and the narrowing of the bike lanes. The curb alignment of this has not been studied in the level of detail that driveway has been. So we on this plan as well can make ample adjustment with the gutter pan, moving the curb back a little bit to make sure that we accommodate the correct bike lanes. And a tool can show you on that. Do we have a striping plan with us tonight? Not quite yet, but when we do that, we can address that. There are no restrictions here that are going to cause a problem with that. We do have some drainage inlets that we're going to be mitigating, but other than that, that won't be a problem. So in general, the concept on the other three corners is to, again, provide more area of refuge, to provide shorter crosswalks with the high visibility crosswalks. There's a couple of things that some lessons learned from the Santa Fe project up the way, that on the far side of the street away from the elementary school, the grade coming into those corners is rather steep on the hill. So there were some lessons learned before, that drainage coming down the hill was kind of hitting these bulb outs and actually going around behind the bulb out. So just as a note, I know you were talking about drainage earlier, which is a good observation. we're going to be taking that into consideration this time, making sure, I think it was resolved during construction last time, but we're going to resolve it up front. So there's a few things we're going to carry forward into this project. Other than that, one of the things we will be probably focusing in on next is how much concrete, how much area do we need on the actual corners. If there's any feedback on that, that would be great. We've basically made the crossing sort of as short and as safe as possible, aligned things as well as we can, and we haven't really studied sort of what's happening at the sidewalk in the back. As you come along Curtis Street, we do have the replacement of the sidewalk, which is in some pretty bad condition there. There's some old driveway cuts. I believe there was something here at Sonoma. Yeah, right where a tool is pointing right now, that will go away. That goes currently into what I think is a retaining wall off into no man's land. So this intersection was, again, just trying to align the crosswalks a little bit better. And just kind of slow the traffic down as you come around the corner. I don't know that there's no magic to this one that I can think of that I'd want to tell you about, but what if you have any comments on what you see, we're happy to hear the comments. I think beyond that, the rest of it is just sort of a preliminary set of plans that we started developing there in late December, and it's all based on an actual topographic survey that we performed with an actual boundary survey. Because we wanted to make sure that we knew where the right-of-way was and where things like cleanouts and signs and drainage inlets were. So it's pretty detailed background, but rather preliminary layout.
The flashing, yeah, I was going to say that I mentioned the rapid flashing beacon. There are two options. One being, use electricity or using the solar panels. We have to be careful with the solar panels because there's a lot of shade in that area. That's one thing that we have to consider as we go along with this project.
In the drawing, it doesn't look like the curb ramps at the top of the drawing are being replaced or upgraded. Are those currently consistent with our new ADA standards, or?
The curb ramps at the top of,
so in
on
that drawing
Sonoma,
there,
yeah.
on Curtis.
They're going to stay in the exact same place. I haven't looked at the ramps to see if they're actually compliant. They don't have truncated domes.
No, they
And I
don't.
believe they have a lip on them, so I think we'll
They
be.
do have a lip, yeah.
Oh, they do have the lip. So I believe we'll be replacing them, but we're more or less looking at the geometry here, and since they're not going to move, we didn't look at those yet.
Okay. And I believe that's a fire hydrant next to the top left ramp. Is that right?
Have to look at the background
Okay,
drawing a
I'm
little
just
bit more
guessing that
closely.
otherwise we'd probably try to straighten that one out.
We'll skew it to the
Yeah.
left then.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Questions right now.
Or questions, sorry.
Well, I do have a question. Has there been discussion with the school district? I don't think it's a secret to say they're really looking at serious construction at Marin, whether it's demolition or rebuilding or whatever. And we definitely don't want to be working against them as, if we're trying to do one project and they're trying to do another project, that isn't going to work. So have we had any discussion with them?
Regarding the timeline of the project, we haven't really met with them yet. We invited them to this meeting, and I haven't heard from them. So I'm going to make an extra effort to let them know about the schedule because we want to do this in the summer of 2014.
So yeah, definitely we'll be coordinating with the school and next rounds as we get more refined in our detailed plans. We'll be showing them what the plans are and what the schedule is.
They know that we have the grant to actually, because we talk about them, they're actually providing the match for the sidewalk. So that's what.
It's my understanding that the current plans for replacing the school do not change or replace the retaining wall at all.
At this point.
At this point.
And that's kind of my point, is that unless we're working together real closely, things can change and then we're kind of stuck. And not knowing what they're thinking, would it make a difference if they, for example, turned the school the other way so the front was on Curtis? Would that matter to this project? I have no idea what they're thinking, but But I just think that you've said it, that we really need to keep the dialogue open at this point.
Right. In December, I went to the facilities meeting that the school had, and they actually, they were talking about actually rebuilding Ocean View Elementary. Ocean View is the one that is going to be also, built. But I also wanted to address the school board to actually talk about the match and show them the project as well. I haven't been able to coordinate with them. They seem very busy, and I think it's a walk to the school district office more effective than actually sending emails and trying to call.
Other questions from commissioners? Okay, we'll open this up to the public for any questions or comments that the public may have.
Hi, I'm David Whalen, and we live at 1451 Marin.
Can you pull the mic down a little closer?
I'm sure, yeah. I wonder if you could do me a favor, go back a slide. I'm a visual guy, so I was just going to point to some things. So we're on the other side of the street from this whole driveway thing, and we had some questions. I guess one of our first questions is we've got an old growth tree there, and it doesn't indicate whether we're going to lose that tree or not. The other question has to do with where your sign would go in front of our house, and what is the flashing aspect of that, because that's our living room and our bedroom and things like that. So it's a very well-traveled spot, and at 12 at night, if we're having a flashing light, we're just a little concerned about that. From a design perspective, the water running down Marin Avenue is a tremendous amount of water, and I would be concerned about this bulb aspect of it actually just flowing up into the house. We are actually already having some problems because of drainage. We've talked to the city and not really heard anything from them, but I'd be concerned that the design needs to take into account, you got to get it to go all the way around this. Here's a question: instead of a sign with the flashing lights, is there the possibility of using the kind of flashing lights that are actually in the road? Somebody pushes a button and they have lights that flash that go all the way across the street. Another design aspect here is on that bulb. Again, living on the corner, we see a tremendous number of bicyclists who come down and make that right onto the street without slowing down at all. And I'm afraid that this bulb is going to have them just way out in the traffic. So something to take into account. And I had a question: what does drainage inlet mitigation really mean? And I think that's all I have, but possibly my wife's got some questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I also live at 1451 Marin.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Reset your time here.
I wouldn't. Just start talking?
Yeah.
So what was my question? I thought, and I may have misread this, but it looked like there was a note about parking being limited to share vehicles, and I wasn't sure whether that was across the street from us.
That is
next to the
another.
school. That's something else? Okay, great.
Next item.
There, that was easy. Yeah, okay. That was it. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
David Wellen again. So also our driveway is so when you put a bulb in, you're going to affect how we get around that. But also because we're right across from the school, we're constantly having people stop and park right there. And what we have right now is a red zone. So most of the time people park in the red zone, so I still could use my driveway if I needed to. But if you put this bulb in, they're going to park in my driveway. There you go.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments?
John Mickey, I live just off of this map. So I'm glad that I'm on this side of the dais so I can talk about this. So I'm just going to clarify. So I did not understand, I guess, when I saw the drawings that the sidewalks really haven't been looked at too much in terms of the exact design. Is that correct? I guess I'm not really supposed to ask them questions. So most of my comments I'll turn in. They're on paper. It's mostly just questions about at the intersection, the corner that has the wonderful mural that says Marin. Just what is that really going to look like? And it sounds like maybe you guys are still going through the design of that. As a side note, it would be really kind of awesome if the school was involved or the children were involved in actually maybe having some say in the design of that sidewalk area. Because I know that Lisa, Norman, and the children put a lot of time into that wall, so it would be really quite fun maybe if there was a student exercise. Not that that would necessarily lead to the final design, but it would be an interesting thing. Some concerns generally about the sidewalk on the west side of Curtis from Sonoma to Marin. Again, I know that it's going through design, so I'm a little concerned that it's maybe not wide enough, and a concern that the stop sign at Curtis and Sonoma as you're driving north on Curtis, it's really easy for people to miss that stop sign, and so whether or not there's ability to make that a little more visible since we're changing that intersection somewhat. And then with regards to the west side again of Curtis, right at the bottom of Sonoma, is there ability actually to provide a small amount of a bulb out there, both to give us more room for proper ADA ramps and just more of an area for the kids as they're coming down Sonoma and crossing. And the last thing that I had was, again, with this driveway the driveway that's coming in at an angle off of Marin. A little bit of concern just that a driver who's not paying attention might take that driveway and end up on the sidewalk. So whether or not bollards might be considered along the edge between the driveway and the crosswalk that goes on the east side of the intersection north across Marin. Yeah, if we can go back just to map 2 or 3, page 3. Oh, sorry, or I can show it here. So just in that area. Now, on the other hand, if the driver is doing that, there is a giant tree just behind all of that, but there's nothing really between where people might be waiting to cross Marin and that tree. So, again, just here, something vertical. I don't know if that. And those are all my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Thoughts?
I'm excited to see this project move forward. The sidewalks have been bad for a long time, and it's great to see the progress here and the promise of some change there. I like what's being done at Curtis and Marin. I'm a little disappointed with the Sonoma corner, and I'd like to talk about that for just a sec. Maybe we can get them to change the slide. Alita, can you show the last 2 pictures? So if we look at this one, and then you look at the change to the next one, one of the problems that happens here is that people come up this long block of Curtis, and they go through a depression, and they go over a rise, and they come down here, and there is a stop sign. And especially at arrival and dismissal times, kids tend to trail along the sidewalk here, and we get a lot of sort of dribbling through. And so people get stuck here. And what I've seen hanging out in this area, helping with traffic, is that people will speed across this intersection to try and get between the blocks of children. So it's this distance here that ends up being somewhat dangerous. And so I'm disappointed that we haven't yet brought these two crosswalks closer together. I think that the intersection, you've done some work to bulb out here and here, but I'm really worried about this dimension. It's hard to navigate this intersection, and that goes for cars coming up Curtis or down Curtis to the south as well and crossing over. And I think this ties into the comment that I think Fareed made about, bulbing out into Sonoma. And now I understand there is a major impediment here. There's a steel bumper and possibly a fire hydrant here. So I realize that this could involve some additional expense and certainly inconvenience. But I think it's worth considering. Is the width of the sidewalk on Curtis staying the same as it is now? It's a little hard to tell from these plans, or if that's been considered yet. I think part of the...
Could you go to the microphone? Otherwise, I don't hear it when I take the minutes.
Right now, it's 5 feet, I believe, which is a replacement of what was there. It was more of a replacement due to the condition of the sidewalk. We weren't aware that additional width was necessary. I think there's room for it, for the additional width. I'd have to look at whether there's budget for it. But one way or another, I heard that comment a little bit earlier about the width. I think we can study making it wider if need be.
As someone who hangs out there during the time that the sidewalk gets heavily used, I think at the very least, if this project makes the sidewalk at 5 feet level with the surrounding ground, that would be a major improvement. Right now, the sidewalk is 5 feet and it drops off in many places. So it's just dangerous. I understand that it could be a big budget constraint to widen the sidewalk. And I see you're trying to protect some of the trees as well. So it's a trade-off.
That's good. Actually led me to think about a number of things, but if anyone else has comments, go ahead.
No, I'm fine right now.
Susan?
What do we know about the light?
Oh, the rapid flashing pedestrian
Yeah, like
beacon?
how far, I mean, we want it on the street, but does it?
I have to say that the comment of between the pedestrian beacon and the in-pavement pedestrian lights, studies have shown that the rate of the yield rate of motorists is much higher for the beacon than for the in pavement lights. The other issue with the in-pavement lights is maintenance. They break down very often, and as I said, the yield rate is not as high as the other feature.
So with the beacon, is the light that shines from it somewhat directional so that it would be visible to the cars without disturbing the homeowners?
We can explore
alongside it?
that, and also I think if we are, the other thing is that I don't know if we have capabilities to actually make it black during the evening or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's during the evening we might need it too. You know?
I think it's probably reasonable to look at if the light's not directional enough, shielding it so that there's, just a plate or something on that one side towards the house to prevent the light from shining so much in that direction. I don't know, Atul, if you have more experience on that.
Yeah, I believe that it is mainly directional, but we can have conversations with the different vendors to see what mitigations they have, like glare blockers and louvers and that type of thing.
That'd be great.
Yeah, you probably don't want to turn it off at nighttime because that's where it's the biggest benefit is when you have someone crossing at nighttime, they need the driver to see that the crosswalk has the presence of pedestrians.
Does the design show where the activation button for pedestrians to use to turn on that beacon will be?
Not at this time, but it will be just like the normal locations that you put traffic signal, pedestrian push buttons.
Just want to make sure that's not going to interfere with all your complicated plans for the driveway and.
Right. No, it shouldn't because we're bulbing out the area, so we're going to have a little bit more
space.
flexibility to put that in.
So this is a silly, is it 2 beacons or 1?
So there's 2. There's
Okay.
one on each side of
On
the intersection.
But they're activated simultaneously, right? Or are they controlled separately?
One push button.
No, it will
It's-
be controlled
you have one on the
separately.
west side.
So
and one on the
if
east.
you're on the east side of the intersection, you push the button, the system on the east side will flash.
Okay.
If you're on the west side, that won't flash, and you have to activate the button on the west side to get that system to work.
Okay. Sounds good. Other comments?
Well, I'll just jump in for a minute. Ken, I think you made a really good point about the distance on Curtis of those crosswalks. And I'm just wondering if on the one on the right, the one furthest north, the ramps are fairly close together and they're fairly far apart on the one on the south, which leads me to think that the crosswalk on the south could move a little bit north. It might not be ideal to have the 2 ramps that close, but it is on the other side. Would that help the problem? I don't think it would maybe help enough, but.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, we have to see, if you can see on the north west corner, there are some trees on that other side of the street, so we have to work our way around some of those obstructions.
So I had some thoughts along those lines, if I can kind of jump in here. I do like the idea of pulling the crosswalks closer together. What I thought initially was a fire hydrant, I looked on the street view. It's a utility pole for the power going into the school. So it's not a PG&E utility pole, but it's the power lines going from the east side of Curtis, stop on that and then head on into the school. So that might be minimally challenging to relocate if it was necessary. But the other aspect of this was that we could narrow the street there by basically bulbing out the sidewalk on the west side of Curtis to create a bulb out that stretches the whole width of the intersection since we don't need any parking there. Let's see if I can.
It was on.
Nope.
It's on now.
Okay, so where the crosswalk is here, we do a bulb out, stretch it across, and end it at the other side of the intersection. You basically have a continuous bulb out there. That might give you enough space relative to the trees that you could fit a ramp in between these 2 trees here and connect it straight across the crosswalk here, and then similarly another one here. So that you're pulling both of this crosswalk on the south side, the crosswalk on the north side in, basically by moving them across 1 tree width.
Okay, yeah, that's
So
a good point.
It's a lot to do, but
Yeah.
I think that would really tighten up the intersection.
Yeah.
It would squeeze it in both directions. The other thing that I was thinking about is looking at the street view. We don't currently have advanced stop bars in front of those crosswalks. And I think that would be definitely a good thing to add here.
We had discussed
we
that
discussed
in our,
that, yeah.
You're ahead of me then.
in our
Great.
design to
And
add
another
that
thing
in.
when we're talking with Anna is see if we can actually have one of those crosswalks raised. So in that way, there's no speeding.
That would be
Yeah,
It would work as a speed hump too.
I think, what's our construction budget, 400?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We gotta-
whatever we can.
But we can do with
It
them.
falls
but-
within
yeah,
that, yeah.
But my hope is that even if we don't bulb out the whole side of the street, that if we can squeeze that intersection down a bit and do something with striping, that would help. The other question I wanted to come back to was regarding the water flow on Marin, because the water really does get going pretty strong there. And, you know, if you've got a curb that's not even good enough height, it's going to jump that. So I think considering very carefully what's going on with the drainage alignment and flow lines there, if we need to resort to taller curbs to help that, I think this will be a place where it makes good sense to consider. You know, along with the whole question of how we line up the edge of the bulb outs relative to the bike lanes, of course. But I would definitely like to see that if, you know, this is the chance when we're, you know, moving curb lines around, if there's an existing water flow problem, this is the opportunity to try to solve it. Because I know that, you know, when we get those heavy rains and kids are walking to and from school, if we're flooding the sidewalk that they're walking on, that creates a lot of trouble for them as well. So I think it's well within the scope of school safety.
We had a similar problem like this on the Santa Fe, and the way we did it was a combination of drains in the middle of the bulb out, and we had to put also some perforated pipes on the planting strip to collect some, because the water that comes down on the hill, it's tremendous. Yeah.
No other comments left? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hopefully our comments in and of themselves are sufficient direction. You don't need anything more specific from us?
I think they're fine. I mean, it gives us direction, and also priorities.
Okay.
If we need to eliminate some things,
Right.
you know, it's just like.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Right. So our next item then is the item C, exclusive on-street parking for car sharing programs.
Right. And
I need to recuse myself.
That's right. Okay.
Excuse me.
So we brought this back because City Car Share actually provided a little bit of more information on the request, and one of it is that it would be a pod location, which is a point of delivery. So being that, I mean, it changes the whole concept. We didn't have enough information last month, and that's basically what we were wondering if it's going to be a point of delivery. So it will be a point of delivery, and they have provided some statistics about the usage in Albany. Basically, they said that about 159 members have primary addresses in Albany of members of City Car Share. That's what it is. So, and they have 53 new applicants in 2013. The University Village pod location has two different types of vehicles, which is a Toyota Prius hybrid and the Sion XB. And in 2013, these vehicles had an average of 50 reservations per month and a total of 21,172 miles driven. So that's showing that we have high usage here, considerably usage in Albany. And again, they are providing the locations that they haven't changed the locations. They also said that Berkeley has, and also Oakland. The enforcement is through our police department, and basically the City Car Share will be in charge of the towing, if that's the case. So for people who violate, I mean, park on an area that is not, that is supposed to be parked by the City Car Share vehicles. They actually provide the other, you know, we can, your recommendation would be, it's going to be just City Car Share or other car sharing programs. City Car Share is the only nonprofit car sharing program in the Bay Area. Zipcar is for-profit, and the other ones are more like rental companies. The locations, again, are they're interested in on exposure in locations that are close to transit-rich areas, and land uses, like commercial land uses and everything. So people can see the logo and the use of City Car Share, in the area. So what it is Solano and Fresno, which I think this is Berkeley, isn't it? Solano and Fresno. And Solano Avenue in Curtis, Solano Avenue near Ohlone Greenway, Solano Avenue at San Pablo Avenue, and San Pablo Avenue at Marin Avenue. So those are the locations, and one option is to start with one, monitor the use and how people will react to the idea. I think if we do that, we will have to hold a public meeting exactly just with the residents or business owners of the block to see how they receive the idea, the concept of having a City Car Share pod at that location. And with that, I would welcome any comments or questions.
Commission questions?
I've got several questions.
Okay.
The first one, the one that's in the village, is there any data on whether the people using it are primarily village residents, or are there people that live in other parts of Albany that are going to the village to use it? Is there any?
There might be that data, but I don't have it right now. I can get it for you.
Okay, I think that would be an interesting piece to know. And also, it talks about citations bringing in revenue to maintain the program. Is that, has anybody done the research to prove that that's actually what happens, or is that just?
I don't, well, in the case of our police department, I think the citations are done through a company in Contra Costa County, I think in coordination with other cities, so I don't know, I'm not really sure how the revenues of the citations will be handled. Is something that I have to ask the police department. Because I understand that they do not handle their citations. They actually, it's another company that does it, and it's out of Martinez, I think.
And so I guess sort of along the same line, is it complaint driven, or do they?
It will be complaint, well, it will be more like our enforcement officer will actually have to cut the violations. And in the same fashion that they ticket, expired parking, time parking, or another violation, parking violation, that would be just the same way they do.
Has there been any discussion with them, or do they have enough staff to make this worthwhile?
I do not think that we'll have to add a staff. It's basically the same person, the same
right.
officer, especially if we do our locations on Solano and San Pablo. And I think we haven't discussed it. We haven't. This is basically the second time it comes here. Like the first time you said no, but right now, if you're interested, I would like to really pursue. I mean, if you want to pursue this, I would like to. I mean, I would have to talk to the police department.
That's all I have
questions
right now.
Okay. Open this up for any public comments or questions.
He's awful chatty, isn't he?
Loving this. I get to comment on all these things I otherwise would have had to recuse myself
Why'd
on.
you leave? Yeah.
And I'm in town, which is even better. I just wanted to voice my support for the idea of the on-street parking for either City Car Share or any of the other car sharing service having pods. Peggy, in response to your question, it's been a little while, but for a while there, for about 3 or 4 years, I was going to the village pretty consistently and borrowing a car, and I was not a village resident, so that hasn't happened in the last year because our office moved, but I was using it pretty consistently. I'll put a vote in for Curtis and San Pablo as a starting point because there are times when I leave my office and I go to North Berkeley, and that's where I pick up a City Car Share because it's the easiest to get to from my office and easiest for me to get home from. But Curtis and Solano.
Solano.
Sorry, Curtis and Solano would be wonderful. The only other thing I would say is I don't know if City Car Share, if this doesn't happen, if City Car Share has ever considered approaching Safeway about putting one in there, because it'd be nice to have a City Car Share pod nearby. Thank you.
Right, okay.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Back to the commission. I'll make one comment right off, which is that Berkeley doesn't have any on-street car share pods.
Yeah.
I think you did that. You mentioned that last time too.
Yeah. So
I will have to really contact them directly and say, well, let me know when.
they have pods in garages,
garages,
and so forth. So there's plenty of that, but just none on street.
They mentioned Oakland as well, and right now, if you're really interested in this, I can actually talk to Oakland and see how. I mean, I've seen it. I think
I've
in
seen
Oakland.
them. Yeah. It's been a while since I've looked, but there was one near Lake Merritt, at least, that I can think of off the top of my head in Oakland that was on street. I assume is still there. So other comments, discussion.
I think I've seen one by Caltrans on Broadway.
That may be.
Yeah, I think.
So there are some there. But really all that leads to is that the Fresno site is not only not in Albany, but also not an on-street option.
No, street option, not for bread. Where we can kill two birds.
Right.
Okay, so I'll let them know that's not an option.
I do think that, I think it's a good idea. I think our reason last time for not doing it, part of the reason at least, was to get through some of these parking studies that we're looking at. So it still makes sense to me to wait. It also seems where there's different companies, it seems a little odd to me to sort of pick one company and not at least look at the other ones.
Well, I think if it's a pod, basically it is one. What happens in private lots is that you have point of deliveries for different companies. So if City Car Share is approaching us for a private lot, then they have a point of delivery in that private garage or lot, and they have the logo there. So but as I said, it's private. So on the street, I will have to talk to the Oakland staff, city staff, to see how they actually, if it's open to another car sharing program, or if it's, because I've seen the City Car Share park there. I've also seen Zip cars in other areas, but I don't really remember exactly if it's just for that company.
I just think it's worth exploring all the options is all. And as far as where to put it, Solano and San Pablo just seems a little controversial right now, and I don't know that we want to add any more chaos to that. And San Pablo and Marin, where we're starting the construction project, it seems like maybe that's not the greatest spot either. Just my thoughts for right now.
San Pablo and Marin.
Because of the bikeway?
Oh, San Pablo and Marin, that's right. It's going to be 2 years.
Well, as long as, if they knew, if whoever we chose knew that for sure, that they might get moved. Or
Well, I think the dynamics of the situation are completely changed now that we're talking about a point of delivery instead of a preferential parking. For one thing, I think last time we were looking at putting these designated spaces at what we would consider a destination that people would be going to, a shopping destination. But now it's quite the opposite. We want to put it at a place where people live or where people are starting from, where people would want to take a car from this location and go to wherever they're going, someplace out of Albany probably. So I think it's useful, for one thing, to have the pods for the various car sharing services scattered around the town as much as possible, rather than just clustered in business districts. I think we want to have it in a place where there is not a lot of competition for on-street parking, where it's not a place where everyone's trying to go, everyone's trying to park, and we're going to take away some parking spaces for this feature. No, quite the opposite. It's a place where just people happen to live within a couple of blocks and they want to be able to use car sharing. it's going to be great. So, I mean, for me personally, the Curtis Street option would be wonderful, but I'm sure there are other people who live in other parts of the town that would like it. But if it's anywhere near the existing pod at UC Village, that probably makes it less useful to the town, because there already is a pod at UC Village and at North Berkeley BART. So I would think about kind of the making a picture of the distribution of these pods of all the different services and try to serve as much area of the town as we can.
What about putting something on Pierce Street?
Pierce?
But, I mean, there's a lot of population there.
That's a great idea. If that would mean that a large number of people
And
would
there's
be
no
able
competition
to walk
for
to it.
park.
I'm sorry, Harry, what?
If that would mean that a large number of people would be able to walk to the pod, that's perfect.
So simplify this for me. So the pod makes a difference because it's where a car is intended to live,
Yeah, it's where
headquartered.
it's where you go to pick up a car when you want to drive somewhere, as opposed to where you're driving the car to so that you can do your shopping.
We get the source of the service, not just the destination of the trip.
Right.
Yeah.
So it will be serving Albany residents who are members of the city car share,
Yeah.
because they can actually drop the car there and pick it up there too.
And as far as working with different companies, it kind of seems to me that it's up to each company how much they want to invest in serving Albany. And I mean, I'd be in favor of cooperating with any car sharing service that wants to serve Albany, but they have to provide the vehicles. I mean, it's the company that's really putting in the money here. And I think we should take advantage of it when we can. If City Car Share says we are offering a pod in some place in Albany, I think that's a great opportunity for us, as opposed to, I mean, we could go to Zipcar and say, we'd love to have more Zipcar pods around Albany to serve our residents. Will you put some in? But it doesn't seem very likely to me that Zipcar would respond to that.
I agree with the exception that when we are talking about these locations that are on here that would be competing with, you know, a parking spot in the business Solano Avenue that's competing with kind of free parking. That's what was sticking me up the last time, but it kind of opens it up if it isn't destination parking, but more to service Albany residents. But I mean, I understand why they want to be on here, so they have some visibility that this is a car that you can. But it makes me wonder which one of these we would prefer to partner with. I like the idea of City Car Shares, the nonprofit. I like that, and they're approaching us.
Also, just to, as an add-on to that, is that they have offered to tow the vehicles for enforcement. Okay. So if we open it to other companies, we'll have to make that arrangement. Otherwise, it will be our responsibility to do that. And
Does the city lose money if you tow a vehicle, or can you get it back?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call. I mean, who would be responsible for doing that? That's basically this. You know, that's it's another task to a staff person.
Yeah.
That's why they say the enforcement will happen with the enforcement that regularly happens here. Usually the enforcement is only on the time-limited parking. So if we're going to do it in a residential area, for instance, then there's no enforcement. We'll have to work something like, you know, complaint-driven or somebody calling from the residents.
Yeah.
But
I mean, probably it would be somebody who's trying to return their zip car to its home, having finished using it, and the space that they would call right then.
There is enforcement, and as I said, or the route. I don't know, and I haven't talked to them yet because last month you didn't show any interest.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm going to start a conversation.
Well, I would think that the company must have some sort of a phone number that that the user can call to activate the.
Actually,
staff to explain the
Yeah, I
the
think
project, the information, as I heard it from her. And I might have the same questions that you have, I mean, right now. So, and we do.
Just a few.
But they can still probably give you a feeling of whether
A feeling of-
whether providing the service is a drain on their staff or if
Right.
it's neutral.
So, and if it's a drain on their staff, imagine our staff.
Then you don't want it. Okay. Service neutral as possible would be that we could say offers from service providers to establish one according to a certain set of terms that we set up that establish a pod. The other thought, I do like the idea of putting it where parking demand is low. I can see a situation where I might walk or bike to the grocery store and get just a tremendous amount of groceries and not want to carry it home. I check out a car share vehicle, take them home, and then come back. Or something. In some ways, having it in a shopping sort of goes knowing that they're going to go buy some. I do agree that we'd then have to talk to the businesses, and where parking is scarce, that's going to be a bigger issue.
Since the looking for, and maybe with Target, they have a plant of a to what you have on going to Target to buy something and then use the car to bring back home.
That's a great idea. I've seen them in gas stations that have sort of excess parking areas. The Zipcar's got a couple in Berkeley.
I wonder if
Target would be
Bevmo
great.
as well would be willing to provide space.
I think that's useful, but I think about trying to serve Albany with car sharing pods.
Then it's a private transaction. We can suggest it to them, and then they can do it or not do it on their own. We don't have to get involved.
Yeah, but I don't
You're
think
right.
it would alleviate the need that
No,
we have as
it's
Albany
different from-
residents to
yeah.
Not a
have
residential
car sharing
service.
near our
You're right.
house. So.
Okay. Does that seem like fairly clear guidance?
Just one thing to add to that, we're talking a lot about the merchants, and I think John's idea about